everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to give our attendees a little bit of time to get into our webinar today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Delengowski, and I'm the Director of Special Events for Enrollment Management and Student Success here at Drexel. And part of my role oversees the Drexel Family Association in addition to Welcome Week, hence our wonderful family chat series that we will have throughout the summer. So just a couple of housekeeping notes. The way we'll spend our time together today is our wonderful presenters will talk a little bit about their areas and what your students should expect for academic and co-op career advising. After that, we will take live questions. We would ask that you keep your questions to the topic at hand, so academic and career advising, as those are the specialists that we have with us today. Certainly, if there is a question that is not related that I can answer, I will happily be there to assist. But we would ask that you do go ahead and try to keep those questions to be on topic today. If you have those questions, we'll utilize the Q&A section of our chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them live as we can. Just so you are aware, this is the first in a series that will run throughout the summer. Our next group chat is the 14th, I believe. I will confirm that date when we get started, but the 14th on financial aid, and they continue throughout the summer. So if you enjoyed this session, if you want to learn more, please make sure that you are registering for the ones that come up next. And again, feel free to throw your questions in the chat. You don't have to wait till the end. So if you want to get your question in to try to guarantee that we might answer it, pop it in the chat now and we'll get started. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Michelle Spina, to talk a little bit about academic advising. So thank you all for joining us today, and we're excited for our conversation.
Thanks, Kate. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about academic advising at Drexel University. As Kate said, I'm Michelle Spina. I'm the Director of Inter-College Advising here at Drexel. At Drexel, each of your students will have an academic advisor assigned to them that helps them throughout their time here and throughout their education. So similar to other support services, the academic advisor is here to help your student throughout their time. So that could be in helping them determine opportunities available within their departments. Advisors really are a good hub of information for opportunities related to research or specific things related to the interests of each student. It could be the honors program, it could be other deepening experiences. An advisor is able to help a student choose classes that are appropriate for them, that gets them closer to their degree and establishing their goals, suggesting minors and helping students pick courses that will bring them closer to achieving those minors. And then along the way, when a student may experience some challenging situations with the class, an advisor is able to steer students towards support services like tutoring and other academic supports, as well as maybe talk through changing majors after a student may experience some classes and realize their heart lies somewhere else in other goals. And they can help them become the person they want to be while at Drexel and through academics and after they graduate. Lynn?
Thanks, Michelle. Hey, everybody. My name is Lynn Hickel. I'm the Executive Director of Co-op. Been at the university for 21 years. Fun fact, my dad is a Drexel alumni. He graduated class of 1965. He came to Drexel for the co-op program. Not much has changed in 50 some years, close to 60 years now. Students come here for co-op. We know that, we recognize that. We have the data that supports that. So my team is honored to steward the program that most students come to Drexel for, but we also recognize that it's a huge responsibility and the expectations are high. And I'm happy to talk about those expectations with you today. Quite simply, my team supports students on their first professional job search and then supports them throughout their journey. Finding a job, securing a job, and then also while they are on the job. And then what my team does is hand your student off to my colleagues in career services to help those same students find full-time jobs after they graduate.
Wonderful, thank you. So we do have 2 questions that came in. We'll start with those 2 questions, and our time, like I said, for those guests that are joining us today, our time is driven by the questions that you have. This is a great opportunity to get in front of the areas that are super important to students. So we would encourage you to throw those questions in there so we can answer them. So the first question I think I might pose to Michelle. You might not have this answer, but we'll give it a shot. There is some confusion currently about Drexel's due date for AP scores. When the scores actually come out, which is after the due date. Can you address that, or should we connect them to our colleagues?
I hope I can answer that. So essentially what Drexel does is the academic advisors look at the AP scores for each student and then take that and either apply that to their degree, depending on the score, and depending on if we have a Drexel class equivalency, and the student is either waived and the advisor can adjust the schedule appropriately. Although there's a due date, as long as the score is in before the student takes the class and gets a grade in the class, it works out fine. So the advisor will get a notification and that the score is late. And if the score is late for this, it's going to be late for everyone or that test or that school. So you won't be the only one in this situation. If you wanted to give your advisor a heads up that this is coming and that a score is expected, feel welcome to. The advisor contact information is already in the Drexel One portal for all students. On that first page, the welcome page, if you look to the right, halfway down, you'll see my success team. And right now, the advisor information, contact information is in there. And in a couple of weeks, a co-op advisor contact information will be there as well. But again, I wouldn't worry too much about this. The advisor will get the information and adjust the schedule as appropriate. We have plenty of time before the term starts in September.
Thank you, Michelle. One question that I want to address really quickly is that I failed to mention that this meeting is being recorded. Following today's session, I will go in and edit just to make sure there's no dead space and then pop it up on the web. We would assume that it would be hopefully up within the next week or 2, dependent on how our IT team is doing with their workloads. But these recordings will be available the same place where you registered. So that's a quick and easy question that I can answer. And one other thing that I wanted to point out prior to attacking some of these other questions, if your student has not picked up their Drexel accounts, that's really, really important. That's how they're going to get information to them. If it's housing, if it's their course schedule, if it's communication from their faculty and staff. We don't really have access to their Gmail, their Hotmail, their Yahoo, however they've been communicating with the admissions team. So it's super duper important that they go in and pick up their Drexel accounts. That will give them access to Drexel One. So like Michelle said, you can find your academic advisor and your co-op advisor information all in there. Okay, so now to some of these other questions. The next one, let's turn to Lynn. And I think this question is a little bit related to the co-op process and what happens with grading in the co-op process, including assistance if a student isn't being as successful as they might want to be. Lynn, could you handle that one?
Yeah, sure. So it's sort of a loaded question because people's definition of failing co-op is different. So does that mean not finding a co-op? Does that mean not learning anything while trying to find a co-op? Does that mean going back to classes? So I'll try to cover them all. Generally speaking, the vast majority of students, so before COVID, 98% of students did find a co-op. They successfully found a co-op with our help and support. And they successfully completed that. The 2% of students that didn't, quite honestly, co-op was not probably the experience they should have had in college. Either they didn't listen to us about what to do on their resume, they didn't show up for their interviews. What I have found, 20 years of experience, is if students are engaged in the process and using the resources that are available to them, they will find success. It is the rare student who does all of that and hasn't found success. And there has been 1 or 2 of those, certainly in my time at Drexel. And they're real head scratchers, and we get involved and we try to figure out what's going on. And within a week or 2, the student does usually then find a co-op job. Sometimes the co-op job search journey takes longer for other students than some others. So first-time co-op students definitely struggle with finding their first co-op. but that would be true if they were graduated from Drexel and looking for their first job. So finding your first professional job is hard. You know, if you can get in your time machine and go back to when you looked for your first professional job, it's hard. It's not easy. I had a tough time with it too. The benefit that Drexel offers with the co-op program is this incredible support network, not only with my team, but our faculty, our alumni, and you get your first professional experience during your undergraduate career and not after. So you hit the ground running once you graduate. I hope that was helpful. It was a pretty broad question, so I answered it pretty broadly.
I'm going to pop around in these questions a little bit to give our presenters a little time to go back and forth. This is a little specific to one major, but I think it can be made a little bit more broad for those of us who are joining us today. So the question is that the student will be a first-year student in music industry. Is a fall schedule made for them, or do they need to create one themselves? Michelle?
Academic advisors make all the fall schedules for incoming students, so you don't have to worry about making schedules or picking out classes. The advisor will do that. Then students are enrolled in University 101 during their first term here, where they learn about what degree progression looks like, what kind of classes they should be looking for, how to register themselves for classes. And then starting in the winter quarter, students register themselves moving forward.
Thank you, Michelle. Lynn, can we talk about students taking classes during co-op? Do they need to? Is that something that folks would recommend?
So if a student secures a co-op job before the start of co-op, they do not need to take a class during co-op. They can, currently, they can take up to 6 credits while they are employed on co-op, and 4 of those credits are free. If they are not employed on the first day of co-op and they want to continue their co-op search, they do need to be registered for at least 1 credit to be considered enrolled at Drexel. So co-op, the great thing about that is that when a student is scheduled for a co-op term, they aren't being billed tuition. So, you know, that's a great thing. However, if your student hasn't secured a co-op job by the start of co-op and they aren't also being billed tuition, then they aren't engaging at Drexel. So they need to register for at least 1 credit in order to do so. So it depends on your employment status the first day of the co-op term.
Thank you, Lynn. So I see a question here about budgets during the co-op period. I think that's really unique to each student, and not sure that this is really the appropriate webinar for a budgetary question. That said, for those of you who have questions about budgets and financial aid and how those things change, next Wednesday, July 14th at 6 p.m., we do have another financial aid webinar available. So Wednesday, 7/14, 6 p.m., the same place you registered for this one, you can register for that one as well, and our financial aid team will be able to assist you there. Cool. So Lynn, how do students go about finding co-op opportunities? Are there catalogs? Are there directories? Do they find them on their own? And what do those percentages look like?
Yeah, so quickly, all of the above, and we encourage them, all of the above. So our office and our co-op advisors maintain a system called SCDC Online, where we have jobs for students to apply to. And there are quite a lot of jobs in there. They tend to be regional, and they tend to favor maybe more industries, some industries more than others, really just based on our alumni base and how many alumni we have in any given industry. So what we do is we encourage students to use SCDC Online, which the vast majority of them do use and do secure co-op through. But we also strongly encourage them, and this really picked up during COVID, to do an independent search, and we support them doing that as well. So going out on their own and looking for co-op jobs. You know, co-op jobs just definitely aren't posted often, but internships are, and we talk to students about how they can convert an internship into a co-op. And we talk to those employers also about what a co-op is, what a co-op means, and how it's different from an internship. So we really support students through that. But the vast majority of our students use our online system and secure jobs through our online system. But we do encourage them to use every avenue available to help them find a co-op.
Thank you, Lynn. So Michelle, I don't know if this would be your question or Lynn's question. We have an incoming first year student currently, I assume is on the 4-year 1-term co-op, but is interested in changing to the 5-year 2-term co-op. When can they do that, and how do they do that?
So right now, if a student wanted to do the 5-year 3 co-op option in their major, if that exists in their major, right? So some programs have that option, some don't, compared to a 4-year 1 co-op option. You do that through admissions. So you can go and email admissions and make that change now up through welcome week. Once the student actually matriculates onto campus, they'll do that with their academic advisor and change their plan of study that way. So pre-coming to Drexel admissions, post coming to Drexel with your academic advisor.
And I would just add, the sooner the better. If you think that change is gonna really be something that the student wants to do, it's better for planning purposes. And the other anecdote that I'll share is that in the programs that do offer both, the vast majority of students do the 5-year 3 co-op program. That by far is the most popular program, again, for the majors that offer both. But as Michelle said, not all majors offer both options.
Thank you. So we have a couple questions about like meeting with your advisor and getting appointments with your advisor. We all know that advisors have a large workload. So how does a student, and how easy is it for a student to make appointments with their advisor?
Yeah, I'm going to step into Lynn's area a little bit in this answer as well, because you can make an appointment with your co-op advisor and your academic advisor. So when you go to your My Success Team channel in the Drexel One portal on the Welcome tab, it's kind of a neat system because it's almost a singular scheduling feel. So in that, you can make an appointment with your co-op advisor, your academic advisor, if you're an international student, ISSS, and Drexel Central, the people who do finance stuff here, all through kind of like the same scheduling link. So it feels very similar. Depending on the time of the term, depends on the availability of an academic advisor, right? So if you're reaching out to an academic advisor, not during registration, during kind of the middle of the term, towards the beginning of the term, they're likely going to have less of a demand on them because less students are asking very similar questions. However, advisors, so it really depends. If you're asking for an advisor's help during peak registration time, a lot of students are asking those types of questions. So it's really helpful to plan ahead to make sure that if you have an immediate question, it's being answered immediately. With that being said, though, advisors are available through email, in walk-in hours. Most advisors have weekly or daily walk-in hours in which you can just pop in and ask a question, through virtual visits, and in the fall, in-person visits as well. Most appointment blocks are about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, because most questions can be answered in that amount of time for academic advising. So you could see a kind of a high number of students pretty rapidly. But again, email, phone, if that's something that you want to do. Virtual, not so much right now. Advisors are not at their desks currently for the most part. They're mostly working from home still. Email, virtual appointments, in-person appointments in the fall, walk-in hours as well are always to see an academic advisor. And similarly for Steinbright and co-op advisors as well, unless perhaps there's a change. Lynn, is that still correct?
Yeah, no, that's still correct. So every co-op advisor has appointment times available, currently all virtual, but in the fall, virtual and in person. And every single day there's walk-in hours. So, when I hear a student say, oh, I can't get in touch with my co-op advisor, I'm always like, how is that possible? We have walk-ins every single day. They're standard, and they're for students who have last minute pop-in kind of questions. Right now they're virtual, but in the fall, we're gonna be offering virtual and in-person. Well, I guess I don't know what to call them virtual anymore because you're not walking in, but zoom in hours and walk-in hours. I'm open to suggestions, but yeah. Yeah, and it might not be their particular advisor, because I know you guys are going to think this is crazy, but we do allow our staff to go on vacation at Drexel, and sometimes they get sick, so they aren't always available every day. But if you make an appointment with your co-op advisor or an academic advisor, the likelihood of your students seeing them is very, very high. If you come in during walk-ins or you zoom in during zoom-ins, you might not see your co-op advisor or your academic advisor, but you will see a co-op advisor or an academic advisor to get your questions answered. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. And just as follow-up for both of you, when should students have a goal to first meet with their advisor and their co-op advisor? What do you suggest for timeframes for that?
Always sooner rather than later. The academic advisors are holding groups called small group advising during welcome week. Those aren't posted right now. They'll be posted in September, those times, but that will give you the opportunity for students to have the opportunity to meet their academic advisor and meet a small group of about 20 students in their major, in their program, who are also new to Drexel that term, right? So it's a really good opportunity to meet them right away and learn who this person is and what you need to know to set yourself up for success. So that's definitely going to be your first meeting. However, it's possible that academic advisors are already emailing students. Right now, the placement exams have ended. We're doing prep courses for over the summer in chemistry, math, and physics. So during that time, once that's all wrapped up towards the end of August 23rd, I believe, advisors are going to be creating schedules for students. So you'll likely be hearing from your advisor fairly soon after that process. Same thing with AP credits and talking about schedules and seeing schedules posted. So you can reach out to your advisor now. You'll see them in welcome week, and most academic advisors also teach University 101. Again, it might not be your academic advisor, but an academic advisor in your school, unless you're in College of Arts and Sciences in Westfall, the academic advisors teach these courses. So you'll have a pretty good shot at meeting them pretty early on in your time here. And it's, unique to perhaps some of your other faculty members. There's a good chance that your academic advisor will be with you throughout your entire experience at Drexel, as long as you don't change your major, right? If you're coming in as a chem major, you'll likely have the same person without the 4 to 5 years that you're here at Drexel, depending on your co-op program, which is really unique because you get to know this person and establish a relationship. So it's really helpful to talk to them fairly soon about some of your goals. If it's pursuing an accelerated degree program, if it's going to the honors program, if it's doing study abroad, having them aware of these things to help you kind of massage your schedules in a way that will make it work is really a good practice and something I would encourage students to do.
The only thing I'll add from the co-op side is we require a first meeting with first-time co-op students with the team. So your student will get an invitation, a meeting request from their co-op advisor to meet with them. We officially, that meeting is called Intro to Co-op meeting. Unofficially, it's called the Hopes, Dreams, and Fears meeting. So really, again, it starts to establish the relationship your student will have with their co-op advisor. What do they hope to do? What's their dream job? What are their fears about the process? It's sort of a level setting expectation management meeting for both the student and the co-op advisor. But if they want to meet with them before that official intro meeting, by all means, just reach out to them.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, Lynn, I'm going to have a question for you. I'm kind of combining a couple of here. We have a little bit of confusion about Drexel terminology with co-op. So can we explain co-op versus internship, as well as if students are looking to take a co-op in Europe or internationally, what opportunities exist there to pursue at Drexel?
Yeah, sure. So co-op versus internship, it's a point of confusion, not just at Drexel, but I think nationally. So I am on the board of CEIA, which is the Cooperative Education Internship Association. It's a national association, and even board members talk about what really is and how do we quantify this, and everybody seems to have their own definition. So I'll share with you Drexel's definition of co-op as it relates to internship. Co-op at Drexel is a typically 6-month full-time entry-level professional position, and it's sandwiched in between class experiences. So students go to class, they go out on co-op, they come back to class, they go out on co-op, particularly in that 5-year 3 program. So what they're learning in the classroom, the intention is for them to apply that to the co-op. What they're learning in the co-op, their intention is then to bring that back into the classroom. Internship programs tend to be very standalone, optional experiences for students. They tend to be summer, 3 months only, and not to the professional level that co-ops are. And from the employer side, I can share with you that employers much prefer the Drexel co-op program to summer internship programs, because very often some of our best employers that have been hiring co-op students for decades now, maybe even when my dad was here, they hire a student for 6 months, for example, in the fall winter cycle, and then they hire another student, another co-op student for 6 months on the spring-summer cycle. And so they have year-round employment as it relates to a co-op student. And they can really get the most out of that co-op student and that co-op experience, much more so than a summer internship. And so that benefits the student even more, because as our employers have said, those summer interns, you just get them up to speed and then they leave. These Drexel co-op students, you get them up to speed and then you have so much more value added because they're here for so much longer. And then the question was about international co-op, I think. Yeah, so.
Also, I'm gonna throw another bullet point in there as well. If your co-op is international or out of state, then what responsibility is on the student for housing and stuff as well?
Yep, sure. So international co-op is definitely something that's pretty popular with our students. Pre-COVID, we had about 220 students go on international co-op every year. Popular countries were New Zealand, Australia, Germany, South Korea, and Greece. So we plan to start that up again in this upcoming spring-summer cycle. So not this current fall-winter. We did sort of pivot when the world pivoted to remote international co-op for our students during this time of COVID, and they have had enjoyable experiences, learned a lot through that, but it certainly hasn't been like it is when you can actually go to the other country to learn and work. So we support students in doing that, definitely, when it's safe to do so. In terms of housing for any of those options, that is on the student to find their housing, just as it is in the Philadelphia area. Our team does have some networks, and we've heard from students some success stories about how they've found housing in other locations, and we certainly share that with students, but we don't have a mechanism, or we don't formally support finding housing for students after we help them find their co-op job. More often than not, if a student finds a co-op job outside of the region, it's typically with a family member or near a family member. So, maybe they have a really cool aunt they haven't seen forever that lives in Austin, Texas. If she's willing to house them for 6 months, they can maybe get some free housing if they do the dishes or something, right? And have a great co-op in Austin, Texas. So we see that a lot from our students. Our students also find job opportunities in other university hubs. So for example, a lot of our students will look at Boston. They want to work at a particular company there maybe. Well, there's a lot of colleges and universities in Boston. So what we encourage them to do is connect with the University of Boston or Boston College, any of them up there, and talk to them about, where do your students live off campus? So then that's probably where they should look to live off campus. So it's a whole network system. Internationally, we work with agencies to help our students find jobs, and they typically also help them find housing. But we have had students who have found on their own through an independent search international co-op. And in those ways, yeah, they need to find their own housing as well. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, Michelle, can we talk a little bit about, I think we answered this, but just to reiterate, the advisor's role. Will the advisor map out a course of study for a 4-year or 5-year plan to make sure that students are getting all of the courses that they're required to graduate?
Kind of. Depends, maybe. So each program has an established set of courses a student needs to take to graduate. Mixed in that is also general electives, free electives, other courses that students are able to take, but it has an established credit amount. When a student comes into Drexel, there is a prototype of a plan of study created for them that maps out each of these courses and when they should take them. However, that isn't controlled by the advisor, right? That's something that the academic department has set. We have a tool here at Drexel called DegreeWorks, which students will have access to and when they pick up their accounts. I don't believe it's populated for new students yet. However, it shows all the classes a student needs to take throughout their time here, and this plan of study also sits in this. When a student wants to take these classes, they register themselves for their classes. They can register off that plan, but again, it's tricky to say if that is going to be the exact plan a student makes, right? Students change their majors. They might want to do study abroad. They might want to add minors. So what this looks like isn't necessarily what it looks like day one of your time here at Drexel isn't necessarily what it ends up being, because the plan changes, right? And we hope that students are learning and growing from their experiences and changing plans, right? Because they're becoming and learning what they want to do. So with that said, an advisor will help coach a student through this and figure out a plan that works for them, that keeps them full-time for each term, that shows the classes that they're registered for meet their degree requirements. But if a student fails a course, withdraws from a course, changes their mind on their major, or what their plans tend to be, that's going to change that plan. But the advisor is there to help support the student in determining what that is. But again, all of this information is at your student's fingertips. They can go in and see the required courses within this tool themselves. They can run what we call what if reports. So what if I were to add my minor? What if I were to change my major? What would that look like in these mix of courses, and how does that play out? We also forecast out about a year in advance about when courses will be offered, so students can establish these plans, so they can plan with their advisor and for themselves. Because sometimes, when a student wants to make this plan, the advisor isn't available. This could be at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're having that moment that they're like, I gotta make this plan, I gotta figure this one out. My time ticket to register for my courses is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. What do I do? So we make it available for students to figure it out on their own, but advisors are there to help them and look at it. And advisors are constantly touching base with students of, I see that you're registered for this. What an interesting choice. We should talk about why you chose that, and maybe we can help redirect you into even more deep experiences that follow that line, or talk about what that looks like in terms of that larger plan. So advisors are there to support, and they establish the base plan that creates the route of the path for the students to take. But students are registering on their own volition and making these choices on their own. An advisor will not unregister a student from the course if they are choosing to register for something specific.
Thank you, Michelle. Lynn, so a question for you, I'm going to try to generalize this a little bit, but if a student is looking, if on the Drexel co-op system in the portal, can students search by very specific co-op type, for example, engineering technology, or are those jobs going to be listed as engineering?
Yep, great question. So we encourage students to do a broader search than just their major, because we're not the ones putting the job descriptions in and choosing the majors, our employers are. And generally speaking, our employers are casting a wide net. So they're looking for, engineering. And then when they do the interview, then they'll decide, okay, this is the student I really want for this role. This is the student I want for this role. It gets more specific. Again, if the student is in the 5-year 3 by the third co-op, those kind of jobs posted for third co-op students tend to be more specific. But for your first co-op, I would encourage all students, regardless of major, to cast a wide net. The other thing is that we've had students take co-op opportunities that, they were like, I think this might work out, I'm not sure. They weren't 100%, but co-op is the time to try it, not after you graduate and student loans are coming due, and you don't want to try out your first real job. So try out a co-op job, and they've surprised themselves in terms of, wow, I never thought that this was an organization I would really like to work for, or the kind of job I'd really like, but I love it. On the flip side, students who are like, I know exactly what I want to do and where I want to do it, have had the experience of getting that opportunity and being like, wow, I was so wrong. This is not what I want to do, and this is not where I want to do it. And co-op is the time to explore those options.
Thank you. Michelle, question for you. What happens if you're in a class and you find that class in the first day or two, first class or two, is either too hard or too easy for the student? Is there a way to change those classes once you have started the start of the term?
Sure. So we have a period here at Drexel called add drop, in which a student can add classes and drop classes. Once that first week is ended, though, you are only withdrawing from courses. You're not adding anymore. However, if you're thinking about truly just the first term a student is here, first term, first year student, speak to your academic advisor. Students don't necessarily have the ability to drop those courses because they didn't register themselves for these courses. So talk to your academic advisor if you're concerned about the speed of the course, the challenging nature of a course, because perhaps it will change since it's only the first week. It's very possible that it's, just ramping up or maybe not quite enough. And perhaps it's a good opportunity to dive into some of the resources that we have here through the Learning Alliance. Drexel has a network of resources that we put under an umbrella term called the Learning Alliance. That is the Math Resource Center, Physics Help, the Chemistry Center, the Engineering Center, like all of these different academic focused co-curricular supports that are established to help entry-level courses mostly, and students in those courses to succeed. So if it is something that you're finding really, really difficult, reach out to your advisor, reach out to a center in the Learning Alliance, and really give it a shot to see if that's something for you. If it's just not a good fit, that is not necessarily a failure. It's just another piece of information. If this is a course that you're finding not challenging enough, not very interesting, too hard, right? And that's a core course related to your major. That's a good piece of information to have pretty early on, because then maybe you can find something that you find a lot more enjoyable. Just because things are hard doesn't mean that they're not enjoyable, though, right? So maybe there's that mix as well of this is challenging, and boy, oh boy, I love the challenge. That could be really possible too. But moving from virtual high school and the high school level to the college level, expect some difficulties and expect things not to come easy right away. And that's hopefully something that you are experiencing. Hopefully you are being challenged a bit, but we do have a lot of supports available to help you with that. But again, if it's a fit problem, if it's I'm not interested in these types of things anymore, what do I do next? Reach out to your academic advisor and they could help you learn more about yourself and what your goals are in trying to change some of that. It might also come with another referral as well. I see a question in the chat about changing majors and going from something a little bit more narrow to a little bit more broad, something like that, where you're moving from psychology to perhaps first year exploratory program might require a referral to another academic advisor. So I may have said earlier that advisors are located within specific colleges related to majors, related to programs. Because of that, they might not have a wide breadth of information about every major that is available across the university. We have quite a few here, so it might involve a referral to a different major that student is looking for, or perhaps over to Steinbright and their first year career counselor, because that person really has a good idea of eking out what are you really interested in, and then thinking about different academic pursuits that could be a better fit. Lynn, can you speak a little bit more about the first year career counselor? I think that might be helpful in some of this.
Yeah, sure. So there's a little bit of history there. The first year career counselor is a new role in Steinbright as of about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a strategic decision to create that role because there had always been this sort of notion that if students came to Drexel, they came to Drexel pretty much for the co-op program, so they knew what they wanted to do. They knew what they wanted to major in. In fact, we asked, what's your major on your admissions application? But what we were experiencing was not that. Michelle's academic advisors, my co-op advisors, were all experiencing like a normal, typical student, right? That thought maybe what they wanted to do was what they wanted to do, but then once they experienced classwork or their first co-op, realized, wow, that's not for me. That's not what I want to do. So now who do I go to talk about this? So we do have a full-time staff member dedicated to entry. So I don't like to call her freshmen because we also talk to a lot of transfer students. So students looking for a different path shortly after they've come to Drexel. And so that's her background, that's her experience, and she's very successful at helping students find a different path.
Awesome, thank you. Lynn, can we chat a little bit about the pros and cons of the 4 and 5 year co-op program? Specifically, we have, is there an appreciable difference in graduation and employment rates between those two groups?
Yeah, so I love this question, but first I'll share the caveat that we've already shared for those of you who joined late. Not all programs offer both options. So in the programs that offer the 4-year and the 5-year co-op program, the 5-year program is by far the more popular program. There's lots of reasons for this. tuition is the same in both programs. The additional advantage you're getting with the 5-year 3 is more experience, more opportunity to figure out what it is you really want to do and where you want to do it. So I think, for the most part, that's why students choose that if they can. And yes, we have data that supports there are appreciable differences in the outcomes of students who graduate from the 5-year program versus the 4 in the same major. Their starting salaries on average are about $6,000 higher than the 4-year 1 co-op students. In some specific majors, it's even larger than that. So there is a difference in terms of the outcomes. There's also a difference. We've done some preliminary review of 4-year and 5-year program students. And we've also found that the 5-year students retain at a higher rate than the 4-year students. I think that's pretty interesting, but I wish I had more time to dig into the details of that, because it might be a chicken and the egg thing, right? I mean, if you're signing up for the 5-year 3 co-op versus the 4-year 1, you've kind of, hopefully you're a Drexel student, your ambition can't wait, you want to be here, you're excited to get started, you want to do all the things, and so you might just be a student we would have retained anyway, but I think that that's a really important data point to share with all of you.
Thank you, Lynn. Michelle, we have a couple questions about athletes and student athletes. Will the advisors reach out to student athletes to make sure that courses, co-op, athletic schedules all blend together without a whole lot of conflict?
Every term. So at Drexel, we have another center called the Achieve Center that is specifically for athletes. And they have academic advisors within that center. So student athletes work with their Achieve Center advisor and their academic advisor and their co-op advisor. There's a lot of people here to support students. And that helps to establish when practice blocks need to be put into schedules and making sure that they don't conflict with academic requirements. So I don't believe the Achieve Center, maybe they have reached out to students, I'm not really sure on that. But yes, it all gels together for athletes across terms, and it's not just the first term. Practice blocks are put in whenever they're needed for the student athlete across to make sure that there are few conflicts as possible.
Thanks, Michelle. Lynn, can we talk a little bit about what happens after you finish your formal co-op? Do you submit reports? How does that work? How are you, quote unquote, graded on your co-op?
Yes, absolutely. So at the end of co-op, the student is required to do an evaluation of their co-op. And so they answer a whole bunch of questions, and then they also have to do a 400-page reflective essay about their co-op, their experience. Also, the employer needs to do a review of the student. And so then when we get those 2 pieces of information, my team meets with the students to go over, this is what your employer said, this is what you thought, to see if they're aligned or not aligned. I mean, that's really where a lot of the learning and growth comes from after the co-op experience. The other benefit of the student evaluation is they have the opportunity to make it public, meaning give access to other co-op students. So not just anybody can look at it, but other Drexel co-op students can look at their evaluation of their co-op experience. It is anonymous, but then, for example, I'll pick on Comcast because I feel like they'd be okay with that. So if a student really wants to work at Comcast, they can search through the database of evaluations of students who did work at Comcast to see what it was like, what were the benefits, what were the drawbacks, what were the challenges, what were the opportunities to really help them decide whether or not they do want to apply to those jobs at Comcast. Great question. Thanks for asking it.
Thanks, Lynn. Michelle, I think these are over, but can we talk a little bit about placement exams?
Sure. So placement exams closed in June. However, if you didn't take them, students received, if you missed it, right, students received a notification on June 2nd saying that the placement exams are closed. However, if you still want to do it, log into your Drexel One portal and do your placement exam. So placement exams help establish the current base level of a skill for a student in math, physics, chemistry. Not every student takes every single one depending on where they're going, right? But that's what we have. Then based on that score, students are given the opportunity to enroll in a preparatory course, elementary algebra, physics for engineers, chemistry, again, that's more of that STEM side of things, and pre-calc. And that helps students beef up what they're doing and their skills to prepare them for success in these types of courses later on when they enroll in them in the fall term. And I highly encourage, if a student was given the invitation to take those, to enroll. They're, classes that really are self-paced and bring you through. They open on Monday the 12th, and they run through August 23rd this summer, so that advisors can help place students appropriately in classes. We find that often the placement exams and this prep helps students get into the appropriate math placement, and that's really important. Often these courses are sequenced, right? There's 1, 2, or 3 courses that a student needs to take, and if they aren't doing well in one and struggling, they are not setting themselves up for future success in other courses. So getting into the appropriate math class, making sure that you have the appropriate base, is really helpful in making sure that your course sequencing for future terms is rolling in the direction that you want it to be in, and that you're set up for success. We don't want any of our students to struggle, and we find that this really does help students be successful in the classes once they're actually enrolled and taking other classes in addition to these, right? We find that students aren't necessarily all starting on the same playing field based on different high schools, right? Coming in at different places. So this really helps to kind of bring everyone together in a way that sets them up for success. So these are all available through the Drexel One portal. You have a email that was sent, I believe, on Monday of this week that invited students to take these exams. You can click on them through the Drexel One portal in the academics tab, and it sets you through this program called ALEX that we have that helps students through with math placement and physics and chemistry. So if you click today, you're going to get something that is broken because the courses don't open until Monday. So those links might be dead right now.
Thanks, Michelle. A little bit of a follow-up to that. Not really follow-up, but another question for you. Are University 101 classes grouped by major? Also, if you're with your academic advisor and it's not working out, you're not connecting, is there a way to switch academic advisors?
Sure. So we have about 80 to 90 sections of University 101 running in the fall term. The vast majority of those are grouped by major. Some of our smaller schools are alpha organized if they have just one major in the school, right? Or just kind of like randomly students are placed in them so it best fits their schedule, right? Based on the placement exams, based on AP exams, based on all of the, courses taken during high school for college credit, right? All of that is kind of put together to make a schedule that counts. So yes, mostly by major across the schools or thematically, right? Can you change your advisor? Every advisor has a lead advisor that helps them through. We don't typically see a ton of conflict between students and advisors. Although it's a close relationship, it's not necessarily personal in those ways. So there's other people you can speak to beyond your advisor. However, generally speaking, we don't see a whole lot of negative rub between students and advisors, because these are people who truly care about making sure the student is set up for success in whatever way that is. And students are kind of in the driver's seat most of the time with these relationships in terms of how much they want to rely on anybody else, because they never actually have to see their advisor if they don't want to, right? And they can establish the types of communication and what they want in terms of communication. And how much reliance they want on someone, unlike the co-op advisor where you kind of have to meet to get access to things and learn. And students are controlling the relationship with their advisors and establishing those types of boundaries. With that being said, though, if there is something that is really conflicting, we do have directors of student services that students can raise these concerns to in each college, and potentially move to a different advisor as well. But again, we're not seeing that a whole too often. I've been in this role for about 4 years now, and I've seen maybe 3 students move undergrad and grad. 15,000 students at Drexel.
Thank you, Michelle. Can we talk a little bit about taking courses while on co-op? And how does that work? Are the classes virtual? What's registration like for that, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke a little bit earlier about this. So If students have co-op employment at the start of co-op, they do not have to take classes while they're employed. So they can take up to 6 credits. Currently, 4 of those 6 credits are also free. So a lot of students do take advantage of those 4 free credits. Because of COVID, we do offer a lot more online classes now. So students are told if they want to take a class while on co-op, they need to check with their employer about what would work. So could be an online class, could be an evening class, but our co-op students don't necessarily work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Some of them work summer festivals, for example, so they work in the evenings and not in the mornings. Some of them work on weekends if they're in the hospitality industry. So a day class might work for a co-op student, but it really depends on their co-op job and what their employer expectations are. The overarching theme here is that when they're on co-op, co-op is their priority. So taking a class is a great idea if they want to, but they really need to check with their employer to make sure it doesn't conflict with their co-op employment. Now, if a student isn't employed on the first day of co-op and wants to continue searching for co-op employment, they must register for at least 1 credit while they are searching for a co-op job. And they need to be thoughtful about those same potential conflicts if they find a co-op job. So we would encourage them to find a online class to take or an evening class to take, because the vast majority of students do work full-time during the day. I hope that's helpful. And I think I saw a question in there also about tuition and classes, that kind of thing. Hopefully I just addressed that as well, but you don't pay full tuition while you're on co-op. You pay a university general fee when you're on co-op. It's not a co-op fee. It's often called a co-op fee. It's not. We don't get that fee. But if you do take classes, again, when you're employed on co-op, up to 4 credits is free. Beyond that, those other 2 you'd have to pay for. And if you're searching for a co-op job, you're required to register for classes to continue your search, and you'd have to pay for those going forward.
Thank you. Michelle, I think this might be for you. We have a couple of questions about summer review classes or pre-math classes. Should those be taken now in the summer term, or would those happen prior to the start of a fall term?
Yep, take them now. So those are, there's kind of these 2 things, and we call them different things. It's the placement exams and then these summer courses, these prep courses, right? Take them now over the summer. The only courses that you wouldn't be taking, or the prep or placement exams that you wouldn't be taking now, are language courses if you're not established in that language course already for the fall. That is different, and that's managed kind of separately, but take the summer courses now, even if you don't think you'll be enrolled in the upcoming fall. Take them now.
Awesome. Michelle, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to throw it at you. Is there an Achieve type advisor for performing arts extracurriculars like there is for athletics?
Not in the same way. So our athletes have really specific guidelines that they need to achieve to remain eligible by NCAA standards. So they have this additional center established for them to make sure that they're making the academic requirements necessary in terms of all the different things that are required of athletes to remain eligible based on these standards. However, there are people along the way to help students. So if a student is in band, right? There are adults tied to the university that are there to support students on these different established programs. Same thing with all of student life. There's a huge team there to help students if they want to join a club, start something new, help advise students through those processes. They're not necessarily academic advisors per se in that same way, but there's a ton of support from different teams on the student life side that are available and looking to help students. Kate, you might have a lot more information about that than I do.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. I just didn't know if there was a specific Achieve person, but there are resources for students there. I did see a question about the general fee, the not co-op fee. The really important part of that is that's what keeps you an active student for your financial aid purposes as well. I know that our staff in financial aid will connect with that on Wednesday. So if you have questions about billing and stuff like that, you should really attend. Okay, a quick question I can chat with before our last 5 minutes together. How to initially get in touch with your academic and co-op advisors. So we talked about this a little bit. It's super, super important that your student picks up their Drexel accounts. That's your Drexel email, your Drexel One, so you can log into Blackboard and see your course schedule and things. Once you have those accounts, you will see in your Drexel One, My Success Team. That success team includes your academic advisor, includes your co-op advisor, and that's how you can get in direct contact with those folks. You can reach out now. It sounds like Michelle and Lynn highly suggest that the sooner the better to reach out. So if you want to do that, we would highly suggest to go ahead and do that. Michelle, I don't know if you have this answer or not, but how are classes looking for the fall term, virtual versus in person? I'm not as closely connected with academic schedules. Any insight there?
Sure. The majority of our courses are going to be held in person. However, the schedule is in flux. We understand that international students might not have the ability to make it to the US because of visa restrictions. So we're making sure that we accommodate those students on both the undergrad and grad level if they're just simply unable to enter the country. But again, the vast majority of our courses are going to be in person as of now.
And I just want to jump in before
clarification here.
Yeah, apparently I said 400-page reflection. Sorry about that. I need more coffee. And thank you for calling me out on that. 400-word reflection essay. So I hope we have about half the people we had at the beginning of the call. So I just started a terrible rumor. So I'd like your help in quelling that quickly.
It's very different.
Absolutely.
Very different.
Honestly, I was gobsmacked for a second. I was like, 400 pages, holy moly.
No, thank you so much. I didn't even realize I said that. So thank you so much for telling me that I did. It's 400 words.
400-word reflection, which is awesome. It looks like we actually got to all of the questions today, which is awesome. And I think the first time we've done that in the couple of years that I've been handling these family chats. But just as a little couple of closing notes with our time together, we do have a very robust schedule for the rest of these family web chats. I'm going to read through them briefly so everyone has this information, but also you can register on the same page where you registered for this chat. So next Wednesday, July 14th at 6 p.m., we will have a session on financial aid. Tuesday, July 20th on safety and compliance at 10 a.m. Thursday, July 29th at 6 p.m. on support services. That includes academic support like our Learning Alliance and class, as well as disability resources and our Drexel Autism Support Center. That's Thursday the 29th at 6 p.m. Welcome Week and Getting Involved, all about the wonderful things that we will be doing to welcome your students to campus, as well as making sure that they stay involved and engaged on Tuesday, August 18th at 6 p.m. And then I know the one that everyone will have questions about, move-in and how our move-in procedures work on Tuesday, August 24th at 6 p.m. So feel free to register for those. We'd love to have you join us for those as well. Like I said, this meeting is being recorded. As soon as I get my act together and edit it, we will get that posted on the web for you. And finally, if there is a question that you have that we didn't get to answer today, please email family@drexel.edu, family@drexel.edu. I personally manage that. I can guarantee you that I won't have all of the answers, but I can certainly connect you with my campus partners to get your questions answered. So with that minute left, thank you so much. Again, when our schedule is released, Michelle, I want to say you said mid to late August for schedules.
September.
I'm sorry, September. There you go. The email, yes, family@drexel.edu. I will type that answer for everyone, so you have that. It's much easier to spell than my last name, so family works very easily to get those questions answered for you. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your thoughtful questions. And we are super excited to not only get back on campus, but to meet all of our dragons. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Dragons, and we'll see y'all soon. Have a good one.